Okay, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Another eventful week, and I'm going to throw it out to you. Hello, the orange elephant in the room is the Trump scenario. I'll let you lead.
Yeah, this has become an absolutely amazing story. Alvin Bragg, District Attorney of New York City, is trying to indict Donald Trump on campaign finance violations. Now, the
Can I
problem
just
here
interject
is,
one thing?
yeah,
Is he the recipient? Is it a mail order law degree? Just curious.
I
Or
think
from one of those countries like Belize or something. You know how the people
yeah,
get their medical degrees? Yeah.
well, honestly, I think he got his law degree from George Soros's back pocket.
There you go. I like
It's,
that. Made to order. Yeah.
Soros backed Bragg. He's the reason Bragg is in office. And Trump made the announcement that he expected to be indicted, and people came out of the woodwork with new information, and it has been absolutely amazing. So, just to set the stage, Bragg was trying to get Donald Trump on campaign finance violations. Okay, number one, Bragg doesn't have the jurisdiction to go after campaign finance violations. That's a federal crime. The Attorney General of the Southern District investigated this in regard to campaign finance violations and refused to move forward, saying there was no case. So, this is something that's already been looked at by the federal Justice Department, and the Attorney General found there to be nothing there, but Bragg is going on. What
Well, he ran on indicting Trump.
Well, so many Democrats did.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
remember the
get
squad
in
yelling.
line. Get in line.
They
Yeah, I
they
got you.
they were running on impeaching Trump.
There you go. True. Yes. So
The case that he has, that Bragg has, and I'm going to say this flat out. In most cases, a district attorney can indict a ham sandwich if he wants. Getting an indictment for a DA is easy because the opposition doesn't necessarily even appear. So the grand jury doesn't have to hear the defense. That being said, today's grand jury testimony was canceled. And rumors coming out of the DA's office say it's because Bragg is actually having trouble convincing the grand jury to indict. Now, he's got a couple of problems. First
a
of all,
New York grand jury,
yes,
needless
a
to
New
say.
York grand jury he's having trouble getting them to indict. Here's the problem that Bragg has. The charge that he's actually work with is falsifying a business document. This is a misdemeanor, but more importantly, the statute of limitations on this crime, if it occurred, expired 5 years ago. That's why he's trying to bootstrap this campaign finance charge. Now, their star witness is Michael Cohen, former lawyer for Donald
Very
Trump,
reputable man. Very
right,
reputable.
who is himself indicted and convicted. And you have other parties coming out. Now, from what I have seen, Stormy Daniels, who, of course, all of this focuses on, was not asked to testify at the grand jury.
No.
Mi- Michael Cohen's legal advisor did decide he found out about this and he made sure that he was testifying at the grand jury because he wanted to make sure the grand jury knew that Michael Cohen was not a reliable witness, that he was a pathological liar, and he was guilty of perjury already. So you have that. Then you have Michael Avenatti. Everybody remember that name?
Yes, and
Stormy.
CNN and Humpty Dumpty, who's now at Harvard, were not endorsing him, pushing him towards saying that he was a savior and could be running for president.
Yeah. Well,
Now he's
Mike,
behind bars, but
he's
anyway.
behind bars, but Michael Avenatti tweeted earlier this week that if all of the documents come out, it will blow up Bragg's case. So
And he's
even
a guy who hates Trump.
yeah, he hates Trump. He was Stormy Daniels' lawyer, and he's saying Bragg doesn't have a case. So I mean, realistically, could I see Trump being both indicted and convicted? Yes, because again, a DA can indict a ham sandwich, has nothing to do with the whole story. Could you find a New York City jury to convict Trump? Yeah, regardless of the facts of the case, politically, you could get 9 jurors in it from New York City to say, we want him to go to jail. If that happens, I guarantee you it will be thrown out on appeal.
Okay, wait, but here's an important question that I have, honestly. Appeals take a long time. Could this basically prevent him from running? Like, in other words, he's now facing, he's a convicted felon, and by the time it gets to appeal, it's already past 2024.
It could
So
it
then the
could
game
keep
works.
if well, maybe. It if he's convicted, it would keep him from running. However, because it would keep him from running, it then becomes the purview of election law. Election law appeals are fast tracked because of the election cycle. The appeal would have to be heard before the election because it would literally change the outcome.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I will say something about the probability of him being, if he is indicted, which I think they'll find some way. That's just my gut feeling. And if he is, but it's funny about you talking about, the enthusiasm for all this, or is a probability of getting actually convicted. I think is high. I mean, I have some liberal friends; they're giddy over this, and I actually think that's dangerous because now we've escalated or de-evolved, if you will, to weaponizing these once mm, pristine organizations, at least in the public mind. And, like he's quoting Joseph Stalin, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. I mean, now you're talking about you want to take someone out politically, in the business world, indict him for some bullshit charge, and you can get some shitheads to convict him.
Yeah,
This is not
unfortunately,
indicative of
that's
a sound democracy.
no, it's not. This is indicative of the weaponization of federal agencies and of the criminal justice system.
Thank you,
We've
Obama.
we saw the weaponization of the FBI. There's currently a whole committee, part of the oversight committee, that's looking into the weaponization of different agencies. This is I don't know that where when we're talking about weaponization of the FBI and the IRS, it was clearly coming from the executive branch.
Obama.
Obama first, Biden now. This is different, and I think this scares me more because I don't think that the weaponization of the New York City DA's office is coming from the federal government or any elected official. I think it's coming from George Soros's organization. And this is someone who is not an elected official. Nobody said they wanted his input on any of this, but he spent hundreds of millions of dollars getting woke DAs placed in office. And now he's pulling or his organization anyway, is pulling the strings.
Okay, how
And
is this guy allowed to do what he does? Essentially, he's a threat to our national security, and why? How does this happen? He's not even an American citizen, or I don't know if he is or not, but he's definitely not contributing to America's benefit.
Well, I don't know if he's an American citizen, but I'm pretty sure his son is, and his son is the one running the organization now. But this is an outgrowth of Citizens United. And unfortunately, yeah, there were some very good points to Citizens United. Legally, there was a reason it was decided the way it was, because companies do have a stake in the political arena. When they're talking about taxes, when they're talking about regulations, companies have a right to be heard. What we're seeing with Soros is the dark side of Citizens United, where multi-billionaires can pull the strings, can place people in office. And the problem is that liberals have essentially been brainwashed into this is the way you do things. I mean,
Oh,
remember we
there's
talked.
no. That's my biggest fear, and I think the biggest danger to our democracy. Oh, liberals are giddy. They don't even
Yeah,
understand that they've suspended reality because they don't even understand what comes around goes around. This is not part of a functioning democracy. This is called the banana republic.
yeah, we talked about this during the impeachments. Most of the people who are in favor of impeachment fail to understand that an impeachment is a legal trial. You are supposed to be presenting evidence about crimes and misdemeanors against the state. And there was no evidence of that. The Mueller investigation cleared Trump, and yet they indicted him anyway. They had no evidence with the Ukraine call, and yet they indicted him they impeached him anyway.
Well, they were
Now,
calling for his impeachment before he even officially took office.
right, you had members of the squad campaigning on the fact that they were going to impeach Trump.
And
this
Nadler and other geniuses,
Right,
yes.
despite the fact that he had done nothing impeachable. Now you've got the criminal justice system being weaponized the same way. And the irony of Bragg trying to turn a misdemeanor, which again, the statute of limitations expired long ago, into a felony is laughable, because at the same time, there are actual violent criminals running around on the streets of New York who should have been charged with felonies, but he lowered it to misdemeanors.
I would agree with that. How does this play out if he's maybe indicted, but he either doesn't get convicted or the appeal happens? Well, I think it's a danger because even if the appeal happens before the actual date of the election, how's he going to run in the primaries?
Yeah, I don't know how it would run if he's convicted. However, there is a very strong possibility that he will not be convicted, no matter how many sympathetic jurors there are, because from everything that is being said, and this is coming from within the district attorney's office, it's what Michael Avenatti was talking about. And the fact that, again, people in the DA's office are saying that Bragg is having trouble convincing the grand jury to indict. I think with all of that going on, Trump's legal team can file a motion to dismiss, and Bragg is then required to convince a judge he has enough evidence to convict. If the judge decides, yes, there's enough evidence, Trump can actually start the appeals process before the court case ever goes through.
Interesting. I believe if, let's just say, if this thing blows up, then it is the greatest thing to ever happen to Trump's political aspirations after January 6th, after many pundits and political experts basically were articulating that his campaign was running on fumes. I think it puts jet fuel, no pun intended, into his political aspirations. I think it blows up everything in terms of the Get Trump legal initiatives, including Georgia. And it even says, even right now, his popularity is soaring. He's now at 54%. DeSantis, not having the greatest week, is now at 26%. So very interesting.
It,
And if it
it,
blows up, then the DA is he's finished.
the DA is finished. There's already been calls for him to resign over his handling of crime, regardless of the Trump case. So he's not well liked anyway. The Trump case has supercharged Trump's presidential campaign. Elon Musk, Dan Bongino, a couple of other folks have already said if this goes forward, they've pretty much guaranteed Trump the presidency. Now, I don't know if it's really a guarantee. There was a protest outside the court just yesterday, and there were more anti Trump protesters than there were Trump supporters. So there's still a large percentage of people that don't want Trump to be president. And that includes within the Republican Party because
Certainly.
they want to move
Move
past
on.
all
Yes.
of this, but it's certainly energizing his base, and it is showing the world, unfortunately, not just the country but the entire world, that the far left Democrats have no interest in what's best for the country.
No.
They are just pushing for power.
That train left the station, I would say, many years ago. With the impeachment, putting the even Hillary, the fake dossier, putting the country through hell for their own political aspirations. Unbelievable. And by the way, there's some talk, believe it or not, that Crooked might actually be contemplating another run.
Yeah, that rumor comes about over and over again. Um, Given her outsized ego, it wouldn't surprise me for her to run. There were people that were working on the Bill Clinton campaign who have said that she should run. Honestly, I don't even think Hillary can get past the primary at this point.
I would agree with that.
She's so polarizing, and the Democratic Party knows that if Trump does end up being the candidate, he's already beaten her and he will beat her again.
Oh, there's no question. And he actually, if he could keep it together, I think his biggest
Well, that's a
appeal would
big
be.
if.
Yeah, I know that's a big if, but he should say, "You dragged this country through hell, and dragged me through hell when you knew it was a lie." However, on the political front, that's kind of more than kind of interesting. Please help me out. Well, let's still focus on the legal aspect. You know, we talk look about Trump, a misdemeanor, something that goes on every day, but yeah, we have the Biden crime family, and people are looking what's going on with his family, Hunter included, and his brother, with their connections to China. Essentially, it's amounting to money laundering, and even with the liberal press, it's becoming more out there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, what happened over the past week is that the Oversight Committee actually got a hold of the banking records that show that Hunter Biden's brother and Biden's daughter in law all received payments from China. And Joe is still saying, no, it never happened. It's a lie. But you can't argue with the paper trail. They've got the paper trail. Everybody knows they received this money now. It's been proven.
Where
And
does
in
it go?
fact, Comer right now is giving the president till March 27th to
Yeah, Thursday, I
recant that
believe.
statement. Yes, recant the statement that, oh, it's a lie. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, certainly this investigation is going to go forward. There was now a fourth unnamed Biden family member that has gotten money. They are following the banking records, they're following the money. And Now, it's not even just the banking records because Hunter Biden's own legal counsel has said, yes, Hunter got paid by the Chinese government. So Joe is still lying about it happening, but even Hunter's lawyers are saying, no, yeah, it happened.
Okay, the funny thing about this is, um, when you see Biden when he does those, let's just say helicopter interviews, he's getting these questions, and he looks, and his mental conditioning is getting worse by the hour. Like he's out of touch. He doesn't even know. I think he's just told that's a lie. Just say that, Joe, and walk away. And
Well,
by the way, he
there,
hasn't done a press conference in over a year, just to let you know. And he's
yeah, I mean,
incapable of it, by the way.
there is the possibility that at this point in time, he has no memory of these events.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
I,
Oh
I
no, it's
you
no
know,
joke. Yeah, I mean he has a foggy recollection that something might. He knows something nefarious might have happened, but he doesn't really know. But it's still interesting to me. The latest polls have him now at 46%, although 2/3 of the country thinks that America's going in the wrong direction. Explain that to our listeners, please, because I don't. How could he be at 46? The guy's like incapable of like I don't know, maybe potty trading.
yeah, I honestly, I don't know how he could be tracking that high. The Republicans are certainly not in favor of him, and that's 50% of the country right there. The left right now is not in favor of Biden after he allowed drilling more drill oil drilling in Alaska. They're up in arms, and in fact they're suing the Biden administration to try to stop that project. So you've got half the country against him right there. You've got the liberal left against him. I honestly don't see how his approval rating could be that high
Let me just
unless.
interject one thing. The only thing I would say, because I thought about it, and I'd like your opinion on this, your thoughts, is maybe it's a frog in water. In other words, when he was down in the 30s, it was like a disaster a day. Okay, Afghanistan, you can have a whole list. Okay, being, I think people, it's like a frog in water. He hasn't really effed up overtly, at least. Hasn't done something totally crazy. So people kind of they're getting in a little bit of a comfort zone. Any credence to that?
I think that's a very good analysis. People have gotten to the point where they expect less from him. And
Yes.
since he's delivering, oh, okay, it's fine. I mean,
And there's no Afghanistan pullouts, but here's the problem: there's going to be something in the near future. There always is an economic problem, something where he's going to be asleep at the switch. And I think so. That, in my humble opinion, I truly believe it's a blip on the radar. It is the United States, it is the world. Something's going to happen, and he's incapable, like I said, of potty training at this point.
yeah, I think the more that comes out from the oversight committee, the more you're going to see that drop. Because even diehard Democrats, when they're faced with the evidence that, yes, this happened, he was part of a criminal conspiracy to get this, he was part of influence peddling, even they're going to go, okay, you know what? This is just dragging us down. The same way there's a large percentage of Republicans that say we need to move on from Trump and get past this because he's dragging the party down. The Democrats are going to say the same thing about Biden.
Well, yeah, and you look at the prima facie evidence. He was basically in financial trouble. That is Joe Biden, which doesn't surprise me because you're talking about someone with a severely low IQ and very little capabilities. Never had, never did, and yet he has what, two beach houses. He went from actually being in financial trouble as vice president to now he's doing pretty well. Lunch pail Joe.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I would love to be at the table, him, Paul Pelosi. Oh, it's amazing how many people are making fortunes when they're getting paid by the federal government.
Yeah, and Biden's salary was, appreciable by most, by the norm, but not to the level of how he's living, not at all. And
Right.
you're right. I would love to. I think, forget about Berkshire Hathaway, just Paulie P and Lunch Pail Joe. They could probably write books on investing because I certainly would read it. How do you turn less than $200,000 a year salary into multi-million dollar holdings and houses?
Yeah, it's amazing what's gone on. And
Again,
unfortunately,
Banana Republic. Thank you.
it is Banana Republic type things. And unfortunately, it's the this is the type of thing that goes on that erodes the public's confidence in the financial sector. It's now we're seeing confidence being eroded in the markets, confidence being eroded in the banks.
Yes, I had a very really good, interesting thing about a Harvard economist was talking about the recent Silicon Valley bank debacle, and he basically said the San Francisco Fed didn't know the problems at SVB, but did know about their carbon footprint. I think that pretty much speaks for itself.
It does, and that's an ongoing problem. And it also goes into what just happened with Biden's first veto, because Congress passed a law that Biden's ESG rule with finances had to be repealed, and Biden vetoed it. Now, for our listeners who are not familiar with this, financial advisors are fiduciaries. This means that by law, they have to perform in the best interest of their client. Well, Joe Biden and the far left Democrats decided to change that and allow financial advisors to take into consideration a portfolio's ESG rating, which is environmental sustainability and governance. Now, if a company is doing well with ESG and it's performing well in the stock market, that's all well and good for the investor. But if, like Silicon Valley Bank, they're focused on their ESG, meanwhile, they're about to go bankrupt, this law actually allows financial advisors to be off the hook for not looking into the financials and going, oh, yes, they're doing
It's
really
a,
well
it's
with
an escape
ESG.
clause for the elite, and it's also indicative of do as I say, not as I do. That the Democrats, who used to be Republicans, are the elitist party because the small investor gets screwed while these carbon footprint oligarchs make out like bandits.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous situation. And quite frankly, it would never have happened if people were paying attention. If the regulators at the Fed were doing their job, this would have been caught. If the bank had actually had anybody on the board with banking experience,
God
this
forbid.
wouldn't have happened.
No, they had carbon specialists. Maybe
Yes,
that's a new, maybe Indeed.com. Maybe you'll go look at their listings in the banking community. Maybe a carbon specialist might pop up now and then. You never know.
possibly.
But on the financial side, Goldman Sachs has raised their recession probability to over 35%. And also, some top economists, Moody's chief economist, points to a 12 to 18 month financial woes. And no surprise, he says that our banking system is in a very precarious and fragile situation. And when you're looking at 18 months, you're talking about reelection
Yeah,
or lack thereof.
this is all going to hit the fan before the next election. And yeah, we're seeing more experts are saying yes, we're going to have a recession. I have noticed that they're not predicting as severe a recession as they were, but the Fed that just today raised rates another quarter of a point indicated that they may only raise rates once more this year. And we're pretty early in the year, so that means they think if they raise rates twice, three times, it's going to cause a recession. So we really are apparently on the cusp of some sort of a recession.
And that will be game over to Mr. Biden. I hearken back to our historians out there. During Watergate, even with the Watergate controversies, Nixon was above water until the economy went to a free fall after the Arab oil embargo. And I think that still holds true with the aviator in
Yeah,
chief
the
because
same
when
thing the same thing happened with George H.W. Bush.
correct 100, he had a 70% approval rating after the Operation Desert Storm, and you're right, and it was a mild recession. So I think it's
Yep.
all about the optics, and again, George H. Bush was an intelligent person. When you have Biden in the press asking him about the economy, that is Mr. Biden, it's not going to look pretty. Not going to go pretty. One goes into
No,
seven, carry the nine. Yep, okay.
and the press is getting more and more exasperated with the White House because Biden is not taking questions. He's not giving press conferences. He's doing these softball interviews with The Daily Show and
The
Drew
Daily Show.
Barrymore,
And what's her name?
but
The actress? I forgot her name, whatever.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, high school
Uh,
dropout, but go ahead.
yeah, but he's not taking real questions. And Karine Jean Pierre keeps saying, well, I'm not going to answer that. You'll have to talk to the White House counsel. So the press is getting really exasperated, and you're seeing it more and more where people are just, reporters are berating Jean Pierre during these press briefings about her inability to take a question and why isn't Biden answering questions?
Well, given our current state of the Ivy League, do you think she's going to get a chair seat in the Harvard School of Journalism? I say yes. I'm serious. Yes.
I mean, she could go to Harvard like Brian Stelter did.
That's
She
exactly what
could
I'm
go to
saying.
M.
Yes.
Yes, she could go to MSNBC like Jen Psaki did. Who knows? Maybe CNN will hire her. They're having a lot of problems filling their staff.
Well, speaking of
Who
CNN,
knows?
CNN, we were wrong. You were talking about how things were going to change. Nolte is a commentator, especially focusing on media. Basically, his headline was CNN is dead. That's not my paraphrasing. That's the actual headline, and their primetime overall average viewership is now below a half million. It's a 61% precipitous drop from the Trump years. Um, there's no room now for rearranging the Titanic chairs. Don Lemon, Anderson Cooper, Jake Tapper, and Wolf Blitzer, the dinosaur, they all got to go or it's overtime. Do you think yes or no?
Yeah, the only way to revive CNN at this point, because
Wholesale
again,
change.
even with the changes that have been made, they're
Too
still
little.
hemorrhaging viewers. They need to do a clean sweep. Everybody's got to go, bring in an entirely new group of people. Now, the problem is that sort of thing takes time. And again, I've talked about this in the past. At the same time that they're trying to reorganize CNN, Discovery Networks are also reorganizing all of Warner Brothers. So will they get to a clean sweep of CNN? I think they're going to have to at some
Well, if a
point.
patient is bleeding,
Yeah.
it's not like it's getting a little like razor cut. I mean, 61% drop. I mean, come on. Anderson Cooper, Wolf Blitzer, please stop it.
Well, I mean, I used to watch Wolf Blitzer. I
So did
liked him,
I.
but he needs to retire at this
God,
point. I mean, he's well
he's ready
past
for the
it.
dog track. It's brutal.
To steal a line from Don Lemon, he's way past his prime. Um, but
Yeah.
when you've got people like Lemon making comments like that about politicians, when even his co-hosts were going, "Oh, hell no," that's just wrong. You need to eliminate all of them. It needs to be a clean sweep.
Yeah, but there's something, as you know very well, brand identity. I think it's been too timid. I think they need to really demonstrate bold action. I mean, there's some shows that are getting 250,000 viewers. That's like Welcome Connecticut on Channel 30.
Yeah,
Jesus.
it's absolutely amazing what's happened to CNN. And again, we've talked about this over and over again. There's only one path for them. Although, well, technically there's two. They could choose to just shut down the network. But the only
Sell
path,
it to Discovery or to
well, no,
ESPN. There you go. To
that,
ESPN. Do something with it.
but I honestly think the only path forward is a complete rebrand,
We
get
agree.
rid of everybody, bring in actual journalists
God forbid.
who are going to report on both sides of a story.
Like they used to.
Yeah.
Crossfire. Remember those days? It's called Jurassic Park at this point. It's so long ago, but they used to do that. I used to watch CNN all the time. I love their primetime lineup. But we'll worry about that later. We have bigger fish to fry, especially on our southern border, don't we? It's funny. I look at old TV shows and they're like, "Oh, just drove to Mexico, drove back the same day." That probably wouldn't be in your best interest, would it?
No, it really wouldn't. The State Department has issued travel advisories for sections of Mexico where they're telling American citizens not to go. Monday, the State Department released a report on how federal officials in Mexico, Mexican police, are committing murders, not being investigated, not being stopped. They are making people disappear. This is literally a third world country, but it is right on our border. And
Well,
anybody,
it's not just a third world country, which it is. It's a failed narco state on
it
our
is,
border.
the cartels have taken over. Anybody who was paying attention to the El Chapo trial saw the evidence because they presented evidence against El Chapo, payments that they made to the Mexican police, to Mexican politicians. The cartels are obviously in charge. And we just saw, what, a week and a half ago, where on social media, the cartels spread the rumor that anybody that would show up to the American border would be let in. And we were overwhelmed at the border. Our border patrol just does not have the manpower to handle what happened. And of course, while they were doing that, drugs flowed into the country. There was another report, folks on the terrorist watch list flooded into the country.
Mayorkas
And
is doing a great job, isn't he? I thought he
oh
was.
yeah, and I mean the Biden administration's comment was, "Well, we know people on the watch list came in because we caught them." And it's like,
Okay.
"Well, yeah, but how many didn't you caught? There are over a million gotaways that we have no idea who they are." The
And by the
idea
way,
that
you talk about politically game over. If God forbid one of these gotaways does something like a dirty bomb in New York or some major terrorist event, I will say, check please, Mr. Aviator. It's over.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. We are the laughing stock of the world. Nobody takes us seriously. The cart, the cart, just look at what's gone on in the past week. The cartels are flooding the southern border with, now there's a new drug. It's apparently an animal tranquilizer that actually has the side effect of eating away human flesh. And
Beautiful.
this, yes, and this is being mixed with fentanyl, labeled as whatever drug they're trying to sell people, and Americans are dying. So you have the Mexican cartels almost in complete control of the US border. You've got Russia and China having a 3-day summit making stronger ties to try to take America's place in the world. We are becoming, if we're not already, a banana republic.
I think we're headed there at greatneck speed. Um, and on the political realm, to close out, we've talked about this quite often. It does bother me as a Jewish person that majority of Jews still vote liberal Democrat, including others on in the celebrity side. Okay, like Spielberg, who's outraged about anti-Semitism, yet he's the biggest, liberal Democratic fundraiser. A survey came out, and 49% of Dems now side with the Palestinians. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, anti Semitism has been growing in the Democratic Party. Anti Israel sentiment has been growing in the Democratic Party. And, this is, I think, a symptom of a bigger problem, and it's infected both sides of the aisle. The fact that people are no longer paying attention to what our elected officials are actually doing. They're having a knee jerk reaction saying, I am a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm going to stick with my party no matter what. Well, guess what? Most of the time, your party is not working in your best interest. And if
You are
people
correct.
don't wake up on both sides and start holding people accountable, then this is just going to get worse. And, on last week's podcast, we talked about the fact that we used to have people running for office because they thought it was public service. They wanted to serve the country. We just had something here in Connecticut in the state legislature. There is one legislator. Now, in Connecticut, we have a set of regulations that say if you want to run for attorney general, you have to have at least 10 years practice and trial experience. And this has actually kept people from running the for the position. Our current lieutenant governor was blocked from running for attorney general because she did not have the requisite legal experience. Well, there is a legislator right now who is trying to push to lower those requirements because at the time of the next attorney general's race, he will only have 6 years in practice. Well, guess what? This legislator is Richard Blumenthal's son.
Oh God, no.
So
Oh God,
yeah,
God, no.
no, he
Not
is not.
chapter two. You mean chapter two of the
Yeah,
Blumenthals has
so
come? Oh God.
he is not running for office because he thinks service is this noble calling.
No, he
He's
wants it as
trying
a
to
gateway
follow
to the Senate.
right. He's trying to follow in daddy's footsteps so he can get into the Senate and make all this money that the Biden family and the Pelosi family have made.
And be a keynote speaker at MSNBC. Well,
Right.
Dr. Lopkin, that concludes another broadcast of Carnivore Bites. I think we've been on a roll lately. We're certainly headed in an opposite direction than CNN, thank God. And tell our listeners they can contribute in terms of their input about the show, as well as gaining access to our many podcasts.
Yes, you can let us know what you think. What issues do you want us to talk about? And let's hear about your opinions on what we're discussing. Go to exvadio.com. That's exvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you think. And of course, while you're there, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites as well as the rest of the Exvadio podcast network at exvadio.com/podcasts on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. We'll be back next week.
We'll see you then.